Yeah, thank you, for taking time out of your Friday.
Of course.
We're here obviously to talk about Two Witches. I don't really think to say it, but the closest witchy thing I could find was a Blair Witch t-shirt.
That's pretty good. That's pretty cool.
The closest I could get. But we're here to talk about the Two Witches screening at Grimfest in October. How are you feeling about that screening?
I'm excited. I'm a little nervous because it's my first film, and not no one has seen it so far. Pretty much, like very few people have seen it, and I did like another short that was like in festivals during COVID, so I didn't really get to be there when whoever watched it. So it's gonna be my first time with people, watching my film while I'm there. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm pretty excited, I would say.
Yeah, and obviously you said that you are coming over for the festival, so you were excited to check out Manchester as well as a cinema.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I will. So I've been going back and forth with Katie from the Grimfest, like for like the file. Actually, I just sent my big like file so they can make the DCP and everything, and it's the best screening so far for me in terms of like technical, the technical requirements and everything. So it's like the first time I'm going to see my film on that big of a screen and with like the 5.1 sound. And so I'm a little anxious about that too, like the technical aspect of it. Make sure it looks and sounds like I thought it would look on my computer. Cause obviously it's like very independent film. It's like I handle every technical aspect of it. So, yeah, but they should check it, that they're going to check it, like they have a few weeks to check the files and see if everything is good. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody for Fright Fest, and their film was showing on the IMAX screen
Oh, wow.
in London, and the biggest screen that they had seen it on was on their laptop. And in fact, they actually had to do a lot of the work remotely, where they only saw some scenes on their mobile phone. So they were like horribly nervous about suddenly seeing it blown up. Because a laptop's probably like a pixel on an IMAX screen. So they were. I guess it is sort of, I guess COVID times have sort of made that you can't see until the final thing.
For sure. Well, actually, we had like a when I knew about the screening at Grimfest, and then other few festivals, I had to go back to watch the movie on my laptop, like, and make sure there was nothing that we could see, like like a C-stand, like a stand or a cable and a microphone or something. And I found some stuff that I had never seen before, and then I told my producer, and I was like, we need to get rid of that. He's like, oh, no one can see that. I was like, on a big screen, that little thing on your computer will be huge. So yeah, so I had to go back. That's why I was late. I told Grimfest, I was like, I'm so behind. I'm sorry. I need to erase some things here and there. To ask my VFX team to get rid of a few things. And I was like, yeah, because I don't want to go on the big screen and see things and be like, yeah.
So writer, director, QC.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm unfortunately, and I handle most of the things. I guess, I've always been like a technical director, because I majored in cinematography, and so I quickly got more of a like DP or camera assistant or camera operator, or even doing lighting or gripping. I've been like seen as such in my filmmakers peers, but I've always wanted to direct, and I always had it in the back of my mind. And so eventually I was like, okay, now I really need to do it, because it's now or never kind of thing. It's never too late, but wanted to really do it. And when I did it, that was like the good thing, was I could really have a good idea of many different departments. So then I could shoot my own things, and I could edit my own things. And for like projects like this one, where there's not a lot of money and not a lot of resources and a lot of restrictions, it was actually very convenient for me to be able to have my hands on everything. Very time consuming and nerve wracking, but but yeah, it's I'm grateful I was able to do that. Now, if I had more money, I wouldn't be against having people that are better than me at other positions. I wouldn't be against that for sure. I don't want to be like this. I don't want people to think I'm like this, dictator that's like wants to control everything. It's just that it happens that way because I don't have, can't pay that many people. That's another problem. Yeah.
I mean, for those that haven't had a chance to read up on the film, without giving away too much, what is Two Witches about?
Two Witches is about it's pretty self-explanatory. It's about like a film about witches, right? It's a film about I would say how witchcraft is maybe be like in a family can be inherited. But it's also like kind of an homage to all those like 70s B movies or kind of like grindhouse, 2-segment movies about witchcraft. And I try to, without giving away, maybe sounding a little vague, trying to make it as broad as possible in terms of like using the codes of witchcraft and articulating them into like an ensemble cast and make it make little bits of like horror elements, horror stories, horror happenings in a movie. So like can be maybe unconventional for a structure, but Two Witches is about that. It's about like witches casting spells on people basically in maybe a kind of little chaotic structure. I would say it's a movie that's made for the people that like witches and witchcraft. It's like a movie for fans. I would say it's very self-aware of its own like B movie. The way it's made, it's like it's not trying to be anything else. So I would say it's just like the story of like really evil and badass witches, I would say, casting evil spells on people.
And where did the idea come from? How did you settle on this being your feature?
Yeah, so I had a lot of ideas on witches based on, believe it or not, based on true events. So a lot of what's in the movie is based on obviously I amplified a lot, right? But based on things that were told to me by people around me, like saying, for example, the opening scene at the restaurant is something that my mom had told me that she had experienced when she was newly married to my dad, and they were at a restaurant, and she was like across of the restaurant, of like another table, there was like this old woman that was looking at my mom weirdly and would make her feel very uncomfortable. And then eventually she felt sick when she got home, and she was like thinking, oh, but maybe it's this woman that looked at me and gave me the evil eye. That was just like one little story. That's how it started. Like, oh, what about a movie about this woman that looks at you weird and you think she is casting a spell on me? So that was one of the things that started the movie. And then after that, I had like a bunch of ideas and a bunch of, like I said, like people or even myself from personal experience telling me about, I would ask people questions like, oh, do you have like a story about witchcraft in your life? Like what happened to you? And then we'd be like, oh, this happened or this. And I would ingest all of that, and then subconsciously, and then I would come up with other ideas. Like, so a lot of in the movie is based on things that I information that I gathered, for example, like the Ouija board scene, or the scene where it's like the thunder when when Rachel learns that Masha is a witch, when Masha tells her, like, kind of out of the blue, I'm a witch, and when my grandma dies, I'm going to be a powerful witch. That is some things that some real people said. I remember my mom telling me that she knew a friend whose grandmother thought she was a witch, and she kept telling her granddaughter, when I die, you'll be the witch. So that was like kind of like the kind of creepy real life things that were said. And I wanted to obviously amplify them to make them more grotesque and more flamboyant and more, entertaining for maybe a lot more visual and graphic for like horror fans, I would say. But it all came from, I would say, real ideas, like, I mean, real stories about witchcraft, that a lot of people believe in, actually they believe, or they at least they don't want to mess with it, like so many people. I would talk to them and I'll be like, hey, are you interested in witchcraft? People will be like, oh no, don't, like, don't mention witchcraft, like I don't want to mess with that. And I thought it was like an interesting subject for a movie to do, because I know that it would be a good way to engage with the people, with like an audience. Witchcraft is always a good subject to be engaging, because a lot of people, they don't deny it that much, and they're scared of it, I would say. And like we live, like where I live in LA, people are so into spirituality and energy, bad energy, good energy, card readings, psychics. There's like a psychic everywhere, in every corner. So I thought it was like a good a good angle to do like a B movie that would be like an homage to like movies like Don't Look Now that I really like, or Rosemary's Baby, or Suspiria, obviously, like all the Italian movies from the 70s that deal with witches or zombies or the beyond, so yeah.
But I mean, I think it's funny, like you say, as much as we think witchcraft and whatever is this outdated thing, I guess superstitions and things play into that. And as much as people will say, it's like my husband is a scientist, and yet he didn't want to get married in the year 2013 because it had a 13 in it. And even a man of science can still sort of like be believe in this weird superstition. It's like my mum, when we go to the cinema, she won't sit in the seat 13. Should I have to sit in seat 13 if that's one of our tickets. But it is weird that as much as we think we've moved on, we are still all, I guess, sort of beholden to these weird little things.
Yeah, it's like this kind of like duality of how we think, and it's like the contrast, or like the opposite, right? It's a little bit like I really like, for example, like the German romanticism in the paintings of like I think it's like the 1800s, but it was also the time where science was making tremendous progress, and in art it was like when we were going back and painting witches and painting mythology and being very interested in the occult. So I feel like there's always been like this kind of dual thing. I think I call myself, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I'm very much interested more in like the technical part of things. Usually I really like science and analyzing data, and I feel like I'm a really rational, down to earth person. But when it comes to the occult, the dark, something that it just triggers something in me that is incredibly exciting, for one, and a little scary. You can be really sure of something, but if you're in the dark cave, all of a sudden your knowledge and everything goes away, and then you start, your imagination takes over. So I'm really interested in that.
I think in the end credits, it says that this film was made during the pandemic. I mean, I guess a lot of people would probably talk about the disadvantages and the challenges, but what do you think were the advantages of shooting during this time period?
I would say the advantages was that I could be really focused on just that for a long period of time, and I would not be distracted. But also I could tell myself, oh, it's okay to only do that, and because there's nothing else to do. And for me, it brought such in a way, a peace of mind of saying, oh, I'm making the most of my time right now. Also, I think one of the good things about the pandemic is that people were really happy to be on a movie. People would be really motivated, because again, there's like nothing else to do really. So that would be the advantages, I would say. And it would not really, because since like the context was different, it would not feel, I mean, to me, since that's my project, it would not feel like work, but I feel like it wouldn't feel necessarily like work for even other people, because it's a pandemic. So it feels more like spending time in a really cool way. So I would say that that had, I mean, it made things a little more stressful sometimes. Also, being during a pandemic, I think I would, people sometimes would think a lot more about death, right? So because of the invisible danger. So sometimes that would be maybe a little different, a little weird too. But I think making a kind of like over the top horror movie like that would be actually a good way to cope with it in a way.
I mean, there are some sort of really fun gore aspects, to the piece. We won't sort of mention but I've told you in emails, there's a couple of bits, that are still sort of seared behind the eyes. How much fun was it to sort of cut loose and put all of this like gnarly stuff onto the screen?
It's always a good time. I had shot my other short that was already quite gory, actually, maybe even gorier. And it's always like one of my favorites thing to shoot. Even though there was some stressful parts, for example, the part where the old lady played by Danielle Kennedy kills herself. That was literally like in the peak of COVID, and we had to get tested, and she was an older actress, so I felt like a big responsibility. I was like, we cannot mess up. And obviously it was a scene where she needed to spit blood everywhere, and so that was in the back of my mind. But the actual scenes themselves was always fun, even though I always have like I'm always really demanding in terms of those scenes. I really want to make sure I have enough, because I think I've done it the rookie mistake before, where you think there's a lot of blood on set, you think you got everything, and then you're in the edit and it's not nearly as powerful as you thought. So I would rather make sure I have extra, and then I would rather cut a lot. So that would involve a lot of blood everywhere, and people would sometimes think like, oh my God, this guy wants to do another take, like what the hell. But yeah, I mean, I would have done it before, so I would know I need more blood or more angles, basically usually more angles, more more different, a variety of shots to really articulate the violence in a powerful way. Which is funny, because sometimes I make all those shots and I think of them in a very technical way, and then when I edit them, then I realize the effect is not obvious before it's edited, in a way. But I mean, because I had talked to a lot of other friends that do horror films and that had done features, and they would tell me, make sure your like horror scenes are effective, because that's what mistake they would have made in the past, and be like, oh, I spent so much time, but I didn't spend enough time on this particular scene, and this is actually the scene that the audience was expecting the most, like looking forward to the most. So I would keep that in the back of my mind all the time, and made sure I would do that. Yeah.
I think you definitely sort of.
And I want to give a kudos to, sorry to interrupt, to my great makeup artist for that, like KO and Jacqueline, that did an amazing job of wrangling the blood and doing the prosthetics and making sure everything would go smooth and without a problem. And yeah, they're great.
Yeah, and it looks good. So yeah, they definitely have done good work. I mean, this film, like your short, I Have Nothing, is told through chapters. What is it about this sort of story structure that you like working in?
Yeah, I think it might have. It's the way I think it came from a subconscious thing. I think like it's not something I really thought of that much. When I wrote, I guess I wrote in like bits and pieces. It's like it's maybe an unusual style of writing, and I get that it might not be for everybody, but it's the way so far my creativity has been expressing itself. I've always enjoyed movies like that. I can't even think of movies, but usually movies that are more like European, that would have like structures like that. Like for example, Lars von Trier likes to do that. He likes to divide, and I always like to announce something that's going to happen by an extra title. I feel like that's a fun way of telling a story for me, like a little bit like a chapter in a book. It's another way for the audience to, change position in their seat. Okay, next, what's next? And it was a good way for me to make it make things unpredictable, especially with Two Witches, where I was gonna be like, okay, let's make this crazy structure, and have people not know what's gonna happen in the next 5 minutes. I might be pretentious to say that, but in have like unusual things happening. Like for example, the end of the first part could have very much been the end of a horror movie, but it's in the middle. So then you're like, what's going to happen? And I kept that in mind a little bit, like the movie Martyrs by this French director Pascal Laugier, that actually did the same film school as mine. So I would always look up to him. He doesn't cut into different chapters, but in this movie, in Martyrs, after the first 30 minutes or 25 minutes, you're like, okay, so is the movie over? Like, what's going to happen after that? It's so unusual. And I wanted to do something like that, something where it's like an ensemble cast where there's no major lead. There's like a lot of characters, and you don't know what's going to happen. It's not like it's going towards a big grand finale. And then I had ideas of like really like interweave, I would say is not the word, a lot of shots from the first part and to the second part and vice versa, and make it maybe a little bit like more of a Pulp Fiction type of thing. But then I was like, it might be too pretentious, and it will be too wobbly I don't think I could have pulled it off in a very effective edit. So I was like, I wanted to go more into like this grindhouse almost like double story. It's a hit or miss. We'll see. It's a hit or miss. Now for I Have No One, we have the same idea of like having like chapters to give the feeling of a story that would have a much more of a beginning, middle, and end with like have like character development, and she started here and she ended up here. And actually Dina and I, that's a side, maybe it's side I'm going sidetracked a little bit here, but Dina and I would have like ideas for another maybe a more full-fledged story of this that would still have those parts. So I guess I'm still thinking about that, not about that, I'm still thinking in that way of like dividing into chapters. That helps me maybe organize my stories better. Having said that, I wrote another script I think is the best thing I've written so far, a horror feature that does not have that. So I don't know. I think it's subconscious. Sometimes it happens that way, and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. I hope the American audience, especially the American audience, will not be too bugged by that, because I know that they could be caught off guard by unusual structures, like script structures, that I think in Europe people are more forgiving or more open-minded to, like, oh, this movie is structured in a very unusual way, but that doesn't mean it's not worth a watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they're both very female heavy, female led stories. Is that something that appeals to you as a creator?
Yeah, I guess yes. I will say that the other short I did, no, the other feature I wrote is more male oriented, because that story happened that way, even though it's still like I would say it's equal. It's not as female oriented, but these ones I felt like it all starts from the characters. I don't think I start with me saying I want to do something. I don't have like the pretension to be like, I am this guy who will do a movie about female because this. No, it started out, for example, with Dina. It started out because we wanted to make a movie together, or make a horror film together, and she wanted to play the baddie. So that led it on. I was like, okay, let's make something where you're in it and where you're the star. And we didn't have access to a lot of actors, and so it was her, and that's it. And that's it. There's other characters, but it's like very much her, and it was like an intimate movie about this woman. We had done a comedy web series with her before, where it was all about her already. So we had developed a lot of like intimacy and a lot of we knew how to convey things with the camera and her. So we were kind of like on a roll. We were kind of on a roll. So we did that, and we got really good feedback from women. Actually, some guys would not get it, and then some women would be like, oh, I really like this film. With Two Witches, it was kind of the same thing. When quickly with Max, with my executive producer, when he asked me to do a movie, and I was like, okay, well, I had these stories, and I had my mom's story about this lady spooking her. It happened to be a female character again, and so we roll with witches. We were like, oh, let's do a witch movie. And my mom actually plays the boogie woman.
Oh.
Yeah, it's my mom. And my mom has always been an actress, but she never had the opportunity to really have a career. So she was really down to be the witch, and to be the old witch. And so I had other stories about like the witches that would be younger. So then quickly it just shifted towards like a female driven movie. And I think in horror films, what I wanted to do, not that I want to sound pretentious, but if there was anything that I wanted to do, was to give like female, like villainesses, right, the word, a big part on the stage as like other boogeyman in horror films. There's so many boogeyman, like all the slashers and the Freddy Kruegers and etc. And there's not that many iconic, charismatic female villains. There's there's not that many. There's like the for example, like the ghosts in like Asian cinema, but we don't really see their faces that much. They don't speak that much. I would say maybe there's Linda Blair in The Exorcist, but that's old. I mean, haven't been that many other. Even like the witch in The Conjuring is not very at the center. The center is, she's more like a villain that you don't really see. So I was like, let's try to put the witches really in the middle of the movie and have it like villain driven, and have them unforgiving and unapologetically evil, and that's it. And make them visual and badass, and excuse me my language, but kind of like iconic. That's where I can feel a little pretentious, but that was my intention, is to make the boogie. That's why we wanted to call her the Boogie Woman, because we wanted to put her like this kind of like childlike, nightmarish villain that children could be afraid of, when people would be like, be careful, there's like the witch that's gonna come get you if you're not if you don't behave, my mom is friend with like a Russian a woman that would tell her kids like Baba Yaga is gonna get you, is gonna eat you alive if you don't finish your dinner. So we wanted a boogie woman like that, very pure, very evil, like very simple in a way, very like like an archetype of like the the fantasy villain. And then with the other with Masha, maybe Masha is maybe a more female developed character where she has like her jealousy and envy, and she's like introverted and she doesn't fit, but she's jealous, and she maybe looks more like a human. She not even female driven, just like human. She just looks more like a real person rather than the old lady, the old hag, what we call her, also the boogie woman. We don't know what her intentions are, and that was like a decision we made early on. Is like, we don't want to give her empathy. We give her like a hint, like maybe she was persecuted in Eastern Europe. Maybe she had problems because she didn't fit in. Maybe maybe some men wanted to get rid of her because she was powerful, but we don't go too much into that. We just make her straight evil. Now we know that she's probably bitter by life, and she's not afraid to be extremely evil. Yeah.
And I think as we're sort of fast running out of time, so my final question would be, it's the 2 wishes to show at Grimfest. People are obviously making their choices. What are they going to get when they settle down with this film that they might not get from some of the others that are on show?
What are they going to get? I don't know, because some of the other movies look really good. I'm actually a little anxious to compare it to them, to if my movie is good enough. I would say, what are the good question? I never asked myself that. Hold on. They might get, well, I mean, good question. I think they're gonna get a lot of unexpected things, maybe a lot of turns, a lot of spells that maybe they would not, I hope, anticipate. So I think with my movie, it's going to be a movie of unexpected things happening to them, especially if they don't know anything about it. I think they're just gonna be like, well, what the hell is this? I hope, if anything, my movie will be this little like what's it called, black sheep that doesn't really look like the others, in a good way, I would say.
And we should probably take this opportunity as well to to tell people to stay in their seats, because it's got the old post-credit sting. So
yeah,
they don't want
that's
to
true. That's true. I should maybe mention that, stay in your seat until the very, very end, because it's like a movie that's like a little interactive. It's like it's got like Easter eggs here and there, and it's I feel like it's a movie that wants to be rewatched. It might sound pretentious, but it's a movie that wants to be rewatched. It's like a movie that you can watch multiple times and be like, oh, I didn't get that, or this, or there's so yeah, it's a fast-paced movie, so I want to say it's fairly fast-paced. So yeah, don't go anywhere, and stay to the end. Yeah.